I'm Jim Longworth. Welcome to another edition of Triad Today. Coming up later on, our infamous roundtable gets together. They'll get into all sorts of controversies, but between now and then, we have some great guests and important information coming up. We're going to find out about breast implants and learn about those. We're going to talk about public art, and we'll have an encore presentation of an interview I did earlier in the year with Sheriff Bobby Kimbrough of Forsyth County. A lot going on. We'll get to that in just a little bit, but first we're going to start out talking about internships and three people that know all about them. One of them firsthand. I guess all three of them firsthand, but we have a real firsthand one there. On my immediate right, Jessica Kerrigan is manager and recruiting and university relations for Inmar, which also means you head up the internship program there. Jessica, thanks for being here. Next to Jessica is Alicia Sprinkle. She's a software engineering intern at Inmar, pursuing a master's degree in computer science at Appalachian State University. And next to Alicia is our good friend Walter Farabee, and Walter's Director of Talent Retention and Recruitment at the Winston-Salem Chamber of Commerce. Good to see you, Walter.
All right, thanks for having us.
And that's all the time we have. No, we're going to go. Jessica, let me start with you. David Mounts, our fearless leader, has often talked about the importance of preparing youth for new innovation economy. Is that why Inmar is so big on internships?
Yes, Walter, that's it exactly. We are seeing tremendous growth across the state of North Carolina. I believe there have been over 30,000 jobs, high-tech jobs posted in the state this March, I believe that was the figure, and that's over a 40% increase from last March. And so we want to prepare these young students to be able to fill those roles that are taking North Carolina by storm, and being in the business environment is key. I'm
going to skip over Alicia for just a second, not to be rude to you, but I want to go to Walter for a second, because Jessica sort of leads us into a good point about talent and retention, and that's your bailiwick. There are a lot of great colleges and universities around. We know that. And sometimes they'll graduate and they'll leave and they'll go somewhere else. You're big on wanting to keep that talent around here. How do we do that, and why is that important?
Well, we're very lucky in our area to have so many colleges nearby, and it's really important that our companies build connections with the colleges for the students to realize internship, research, even shadowing opportunities, because we have these students that are here for 2, 4, or more years, and we want to be able to keep them if we can. And so the internship opportunities allow them to see themselves actually working here in the community. All the students live in their campus bubbles, but getting in a workplace, real world experience is really important for them, but also just to draw them into our companies.
And you do some seminars for the young people too, coming through. What is that, summer type stuff that you do?
Yes, we have a summer program called the Intern Experience, and we've partnered with Inmar for the past number of years with that, and we try to build connections with the interns. We have workshops, we have socials, just opportunities for engagement for them to see other young professionals.
Alicia, you're not only just an intern, you're repeating. You're doing like a second internship at Inmar. What led you to Inmar? Why would you want to choose a second term as an intern?
Well, coming to Winston-Salem was kind of a no-brainer. I grew up about 45 minutes out in Danbury, North Carolina. As for why Inmar, I think it's our company phrase that kind of speaks volumes about the company's values, which is "We are Inmar." From day one, I was treated as a part of the Inmar family. The work I was doing was very valuable, and I found myself really missing it once I returned back to school.
Right. Now, once you get your master's and all this stuff, what do you plan to do after that, or do you know?
Well, I'm coming back to Inmar.
Well,
I'm very thankful to say.
Jessica looked at me and said, well, I didn't know anything about that. That's an important part of it, is to try to bring back that talent that you brought in. And interns just don't run and get coffee for somebody. You're really making them a partner in it. I just think what you're doing is great. And Walter, I think what you're doing is great over at the Chamber as well. Before time gets away from us, I want to put up a couple of websites. One is winstonsalem.com, which is the Chamber website. You can learn all sorts of information about that. And inmar.com is the general website for that fine organization. I'll say it again for the radio listening audience on WSJS, inmar.com. And to Jessica and Alicia and Walter, maybe the three of you can come back sometime and we can see how she's doing when she becomes a full-time employee.
Would love to. Thank you.
Sure.
Thank you.
All right. Thanks for everything you do. We'll be right back after this. Triad Today, every once in a while, we're so glad when we can sit down and speak with some of the good folks at the Z. Smith Reynolds Foundation. They do such great work. And next to me is someone on that great staff. She is Joy Vermillion Heinsohn. She's Assistant Director of the Z. Smith Reynolds Foundation. We welcome you to Triad Today.
Great to be here.
Thanks for coming by. I know we're going to talk about art in just a second, but before we do that, let's remind folks, in case maybe they haven't seen some of these segments before, what's the overall mission of the Z. Smith Reynolds Foundation? How would you sort of capsulize that?
Yeah, the mission is simple but broad. We are an organization that works to improve the quality of life for the people of North Carolina.
Now, last year, as I understand it, the foundation launched an initiative called All for NC, right?
Correct.
We can get into some of the details, but in general, what is that about? What does that mean?
So the All for NC framework is our new framework for grant making and learning. We're a private foundation. We've been in existence over 80 years. And for many years, we had a set of 5 focus areas that really guided all of our work. Within our new framework, we have a whole set of strategies that are focused on state-level systemic change, a community-based strategy, and an exploratory visionary ideas strategy. And that last one, the exploratory visionary ideas strategy, is where this new inclusive public art initiative exists.
Yeah, and I just want to say, you know, because I want to brag on all of you guys and Mo and everybody at the foundation, because he went on that listening tour and he went around for like almost a year around the state to find out what the needs were in the various communities. So you all didn't just come up with this one day in a meeting. I mean, this was based on need, right? Absolutely.
We spent, as you said, about a year traveling North Carolina. We went in depth in about 10 sites across the state, spending several days in each site to try and really understand and to ground truth some of the data that we had been reading, but to speak with real people and hear about the assets and opportunities in those communities and let that influence what we might do as an organization to improve the quality of life.
Now let's get to public art. You sent me an email one day that said something about inclusive public art initiative. Now I think I know what that means, but maybe I don't, so educate me.
Our Inclusive Public Art Initiative is a program that is providing grant funding to 10 communities across North Carolina to tell a more holistic picture of the people and communities of the state. All too often in the past, we believe that the history of North Carolina has not reflected the full population of the people of the state, and that a lot of what we see in our public squares and public places reflects only one narrative. And so this was an opportunity to say, how might we tell more of the stories that have gone untold or undertold in North Carolina? And in particular, we've been trying to focus on lifting up the contributions and achievements of North Carolinians who are women or people of color that have not had their stories told in those local communities.
Now, why the name public art, though? Does this have to do exclusively with people doing paintings and sculptures and things that reflect cultures and historical things, or help me on this?
Yeah, that's exactly right. So this is an opportunity where we've said we want these installations to be permanent public art in a way that can allow communities to have real conversations and community engagement about the story that's being depicted in that art, so that folks there can understand more about what may have happened historically in that place. In some instances, though, it also is about reflecting the current ethnic and racial diversity of those communities and talking about how that makes our communities stronger.
Now, I want to know about some of the grants that you recently made. I don't mean for you that you have to list all the grants, but give me an example real quick of a grant you might have given.
Sure. So we made a grant to Eastern Carolina Christian College, which is in Roanoke Rapids, North Carolina, in the northeastern part of the state. And they are working on a mural and sculpture that will depict the story of a woman named Sarah Keyes Evans, who many years before Rosa Parks' famous boycott was someone in North Carolina in the 50s who actually was being arrested potentially.
Making that statement.
Absolutely.
I think that's just a great example there. We're almost out of time, so I want to put up some information here on screen for people to be able to keep up with this. And then I want to get you back sometime. We can go into this more in depth. www.zsr.org is the website for the radio listening audience, zsr.org. That's how you can keep up with this. And there's a microsite, and there's all sorts of things you can check out, but please go to that website. And Joy, thanks for being here.
Delighted to be here. Thank you.
Thanks for everything you all do. We'll be right back after this. I first want you to meet this great guest. He is newly elected High Sheriff of Forsyth County, Bobby Kimbrough Jr. Welcome to the show, young man.
Thank you, sir.
Good
I
to see you.
appreciate it. Thank you.
He's also author of this book called Surviving the Stop. I'm going to ask him about that in just a second. But first, let me just go back in time a minute. You grew up in Winston-Salem, so did I, and we have sort of the same kind of backgrounds and things, except you've been in law enforcement. You did police. You worked with fire department, DEA, a drug enforcement agent. How do you put all that together in a package? How is that going to serve you as being sheriff?
It'll serve me very well because having worked with the local, the state, and the federal government, it gives me a global view of law enforcement. It helps me with the decisions that I make. It helps me understand the effects of law enforcement, not only from a local standpoint, but how it impacts us from a national standpoint.
And we really need to coordinate all those things, local and national. A lot of times things fall through the cracks, and that's something that I think you can help with. Maybe we won't have those things fall through the cracks and have some of the problems that we do. Surviving the Stop. Now tell me quickly what this title means. You wrote this a couple years ago. What does it mean? Why did you write it?
Well, I wrote that book as I was retiring. Saw some of the things that were happening and the misunderstanding between law enforcement and the community, motorists, drivers. Surviving the stop means the stop that takes place on the side of the road between the driver, the motorist, and the law enforcement. How do we survive that? You know, people say there are common things that you should do when stopped by the police, but common is not common. And so in that book, we talk about and discuss things, the respect that needs to take place, and how do you survive an interaction with the police.
Well, we hear a lot from some of our African-American friends that say that they've coined the phrase driving while black, riding while black, walking while black. Is this book only for African-American motorists, or can we all learn something from it?
No, that book is for anybody that drives from 16 to 80. Because you need to understand that within law enforcement, in any profession, there is a different way in that profession of communicating. A journalist is trained one way, a law enforcement is trained one way, a doctor is trained one way. And you need to understand the dynamics when you come encounter with the police.
Yeah, I mean, we have instances across the country that you don't hear about that often, but you'll have a white policeman and a white motorist. The white motorist, you know, smarts off to the cop, and then you have a problem. Same way with a black on black, you know, situation. So I think this is a great book, and I hope people get it. Can people still get this?
They can. You know, it's Barnes & Nobles, Amazon.com.
All right. Well, I hope people will get that. It's a great book. Now, let me ask you, what's the biggest crime problem that you face that you need to tackle in Forsyth County?
Well, you know, one of the crimes issues that we have, or problems that we have, not only just in Forsyth County, but throughout this state and throughout this country, is the opioid epidemic. You know, as we talked earlier, we had over approximately 72,000 people die last year of this epidemic, and it's one of the worst epidemics in the history of America. We've got to address that because it has no respect of race, color, creed, or financial. It's an epidemic that we've got to address.
Speaking of race, color, creed, what does it mean to be the first black sheriff elected in the history of Forsyth County? Or does it mean anything? Is it just because you've done so many great things in law enforcement, you say, well, this is just another task, I'm going with it? Or do you stop and think, okay, this means something different?
Well, you know what? I do this because I love it. I never state the obvious. I know that I'm an African American, but I don't want to be seen. I want to be seen as the sheriff of the black, the white, the Latinos, the Hispanic, the East, the West, the North, and the South, because at the end of the day, that's what makes us great.
Well, a lot of people elected you, and that brings me to the final question very quickly. People coming up to me, not just in your case, but other cases, say, hey, the police chief is hired by the city council. There's so much bad politics going on in sheriff's races. It gets really nasty in some of these races. Why don't we get the politics out of it, let the Forsyth County commissioners, county commissioners hire the sheriff?
I understand the debate, and I get it. But you have to remember, as you said, that the police chief is selected, the sheriff is elected, because the sheriff is responsible for the city and the county, you know, because the county sits inside of the city. He has jurisdiction, or she has jurisdiction throughout the city and the county. So I think that the people should elect the sheriff.
You don't have to remind me about city, county. I pay city taxes and county taxes.
I can imagine.
We'll do a whole segment on that.
Yeah, well, why not?
Please get this book, and meanwhile, up on screen is the Forsyth County Sheriff's Office website. Please check that out. Sheriff, don't be a stranger to the show.
I appreciate you, Jim.
Thank you, sir. All right.
Thank you.
We'll be right back after. Now on Triad Today, I always like it when we can grab this gentleman and get him over here. He's so busy and he sees patients and does a lot for a lot of good folks. But we got him over here, so we're going to take advantage of his knowledge. Next to me is our good friend Dr. Andy Snyder. He's a surgeon with Forsyth Plastic Surgery located in Winston-Salem. Good to see you, sir.
Thank you for having us.
I read somewhere that about 1 in every 26 women has a breast implant, and of course the reasons are varied. So I'm assuming you do breast implants for both medical as well as cosmetic reasons, right?
That's right. We use breast implants for both cosmetic reasons, mainly an augmentation. A woman wants to have fuller, plumper breasts, or reconstruction. A woman's had a mastectomy and needs to be reconstructed. We use implants all the time for reconstruction. So yes, there are a lot of implants out there. It's something we do a lot of. A lot of women have implants. A lot of women are thinking about breast implants. So it's a good thing to talk about.
Yeah, who would be a typical candidate? I know you mentioned some categories, but I mean, are there certain restrictions? Should you be a certain age? Like, should you be over 18? Should you be under 80? Should you be, I mean, do you keep any of these things in mind as a restriction?
Yeah, I mean, you know, there are several folks that we see. There are young women that come in that maybe want to have fuller breasts in their 20s, so we see them. There are some women that are older, maybe they've had kids, they've breastfed, their breasts have enlarged and they've shrunk, and now they kind of feel a little deflated and they want to get their more youthful look back.
Right.
We even see, older women, maybe in their 50s, who want an augmentation. Then, of course, women that have breast cancer and have a mastectomy, I mean, we see women as young as late 20s, early 30s who have mastectomy for breast cancer. So
Right.
it's really the entire range of folks.
Do men, I know we didn't rehearse this or anything, but can men have breast implants?
No.
No.
Do you want some, Jim?
No, I'm too fat around here anyway. I just wondered.
I mean, there's no law against it, but
Right.
no, we don't really see men.
Because I know that a lot of men do get breast cancer, and so I was
Right.
just curious about what
Yeah.
you do in reconstruction with that.
Yeah.
Now, let me ask this: is this a relatively safe, easy procedure?
Well, it's a safe procedure. Every procedure has some risks associated with it. So whether it's augmentation or a reconstruction or a lift with an implant, they all have some risks. But in general, these are low risks. And what I always tell folks about implants is that these are very safe devices. They have been studied for decades, and they're on now multiple generations of improvements of the implants. But they don't last forever.
Oh, now how would you know? I mean, is there a time where you say to the patient, okay, you're 35, you need to come back in X number of years, or what do you say?
Not necessarily, but we do tell women that if they notice any changes in the implants, if they get hard or they start to look deformed or something, it may be that it's time to replace them or do something like this. On average, I usually tell my patients they probably can get 20, 25 years out of a breast implant. But if you're seeing a young person, maybe in their 20s, I always tell that patient, there's no way you're going to, if you want to live to be 80 or 90 years old, that implant's probably going to be around, you might have to have it replaced when you're in your 40 or something.
Yeah. Do you perform the implant procedures in your surgical suites in your office, or do you go to the hospital, or how does that work?
Well, we do them in our office if it's a cosmetic reason. So if a patient wants a cosmetic breast augmentation, we do those in our own surgery center, the Plastic Surgery Center of North Carolina, in our office. If it's a reconstruction, like somebody's had a mastectomy, we typically will do those at the hospital.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now, you mentioned something a while ago about a lot of women think about it very quickly before time runs out. That thinking process is sort of a consulting time. What's a good time to come talk with you?
Well, we know that the average woman that comes to see us has been thinking about it for usually a year or two. They just don't wake up in the morning and say, hey, I'm going to go see a plastic surgeon that day.
Right.
So they've been thinking about it for a while. Most of the time when they come in, they've researched on the internet, they've talked to friends, they know about breast surgery, they know about breast implants. They oftentimes know everything they need to know. But really, anytime someone wants to come and see us, they're welcome to call our office, make an appointment. We can discuss them, the risks, the benefits of the procedure, the complications that can happen with implants, the safety aspects, all these kind of things, because there are a lot of aspects to it, and we really want people to go into surgery knowing all these things.
Absolutely. Up on screen, speaking of doing things at the office in the surgical suites, Forsyth Plastic Surgery located 2901 Maplewood Avenue in Winston-Salem. The website, forsythplasticsurgery.com. I'll say it again for the radio listening audience, WSJS. forsythplasticsurgery.com. Number is 765-8620. Dr. Andy Snyder, you're going to stick around and help us with the roundtable, too?
Would love to. Thanks.
All right, sir.
Good to see you.
All right.
Thank you.
We'll be right back after that Triad Today. Just about time for the roundtable, but I want you to pick up your copy of Yes Weekly if you would. I have a column in there. That's not the only reason you should pick it up. I hope you like it, but there's a lot of good stuff in there. Yes Weekly, it's available for free everywhere. Now, on a sad note, let me just say that the reason our good buddy Ogie Overman is not here today, he is with his family taking care of things, and because he lost his brother Greg, Greg passed away earlier this week. He was only 69 years old, and so our thoughts and prayers go out to our buddy Ogie Overman. All right, now to the roundtable. Next to me on the right, the beautiful, talented author, public speaker, and the face of ABC 45, My 48, Carol Andrews. Next to her, a special guest who you saw earlier in the program, Dr. Andy Schneider, a surgeon with Forsyth Plastic Surgery, has agreed to stay over and help us a little bit today with the roundtable. And bringing up the rear, and I mean that in the most affectionate way, is my friend of 150 years, Dave Plyler, chairman of the County Commissioners in Forsyth. All right, guys and gals, let's get to it. The deadline, as you may or may not know, the deadline for ratifying the Equal Rights Amendment has long since passed. But if Congress extends that deadline, only one more state is needed to ratify. Do you think North Carolina would be the 38th state to ratify the ERA, Carol?
No. I think that it will be ratified. I don't necessarily think this will be the state to do it.
We might be way down the list. Andy?
Make it surprising.
I think it'd be great if North Carolina did it. I think it would make a statement about North Carolina and our progressive values. So I'd be all in favor of it. It'd be nice if that happened.
Yeah, we've had some image problems on various and sundry things. It could turn that around a little bit.
Right.
Dave?
Well, in today's political climate, I think that probably could happen easily. And I think Andy's right. It's you don't know what's going to happen in politics, who's going to benefit, who's not going to benefit, but
That's right.
I think it's possible.
Right.
I don't know what's happening in politics, and I woke up one morning and you were chairman of the county commission. That's right. Speaking of women's rights, last week a Texas woman was asked to leave a public swimming pool because she was breastfeeding her baby at poolside. Now, guys and gals, do we need to pass legislation to make public breastfeeding legal? And if we do, would that law invalidate current bans and ordinances on being topless in public? Serious question, but kind of weird. Carol?
I think you are in a quandary because in fact, well, most women cover, so you're not truly topless. But I just don't know. I think if you don't want to watch somebody breastfeeding, move to the other side of the pool. It's easy to avoid.
All right, Andy.
Yeah, I agree with Carol. It's not a big issue because most of the time women cover themselves. They're very discreet about it. They're private about it. You may have a case every once in a while of somebody wanting to be more demonstrative or out there, but to legislate always about that one outlier seems to me overkill.
All right, David.
I think the government should stay out of what a woman is supposed to do. It's just period.
With everything.
Yeah, I think so.
I
really.
get your message. That's why the four of us don't live in Alabama. That's,
We don't?
Yeah, a PBS TV station in Alabama, speaking of that, recently refused to air an episode of the cartoon Arthur because it depicted a same-sex wedding. Are you guys okay with that decision, or do you think it's okay for preschoolers to watch a cartoon about gay marriage? Carol Andrews.
I think that it is okay for families to decide which episodes their children should watch, that a station should give them ample warning that this is coming up. I think you're stepping on the free speech here.
Andy.
Yeah, I agree. I think this is something that's happening today. We don't know what the climate will be like 10, 20, 30 years from now, but same-sex marriage is a thing right now. People are going to be exposed to it, and that means preschoolers. There should be television shows about it. We should talk to kids about it. And if a family wants to shield their child from that, they can try to do that. But this is a thing that is part of our life these days.
They're going to find out anyway.
They're going to find out.
David.
Education is the key, and I would rather any child of mine find out what's going on in this world at an early age rather than have it hit them at the wrong time when they're adults.
All right.
It just doesn't make sense.
Speaking of Alabama, last week their governor signed into law a bill that will chemically castrate men who are convicted of a sex crime against a child. You guys okay with that remedy, Carol?
My first response is, sure. My real response is, you're going to get the wrong guy at some point, and so that's a very, very, very dangerous
Slippery slope, isn't
Yep.
it? Yeah, Andy.
Yeah, I mean, I think these folks should be punished to the maximum extent of the law. I'm not sure I'm in favor of some kind of medication that potentially has side effects that
Could be irreversible?
I'd rather punish in a million different ways. This doesn't seem to me quite the way to do it.
David?
Don't do something you can't take back.
Yeah.
Period.
Very good.
So, but if it's, not to beat a dead horse, but if it's reversible, well, I guess, but why would you do it if it was reversible?
Right.
All right, Nevada has become the first state to make it illegal for an employer to refuse to hire a job applicant who happens to fail a marijuana test. Would you like to see that law passed in North Carolina, and would it pass here? Carol Andrews.
I'm just laughing because it's Nevada.
Yeah.
I don't know if it would pass here. I mean, we're still on the cusp of deciding whether we're going to legalize medical marijuana. So I think we're a long way off from that.
Andy.
Yeah, I'm kind of ambivalent about this. I really don't know where we should be on this issue, honestly, because if somebody tested positive for alcohol, which is a drug, and you said, I'm not going to hire you, maybe they had a drink last night. I mean, who knows? I mean, it seems to me that, again, the government maybe doesn't need to have a role in this right now.
Dave.
I don't think in Raleigh, most of the legislatures have any idea what they're talking about when it comes to marijuana.
Yeah.
10 years ago, we wouldn't even have this conversation. Now it probably is inevitable.
Yeah, they might be smoking it, and that's why they
That's
don't
right.
know.
It's probably
All right,
the problem,
Finally,
yeah.
the last question for the group. NASA now says that private citizens will be allowed to fly to the International Space Station. Guys and gals, if given the opportunity, would you like to fly to the space station? Carol.
Sign me up, and my husband said he will be standing there to keep me off the rocket.
He's not going, but you will.
He says he's not letting me go either.
Andy.
I'd go. Sign me
You
up.
would go.
Sure.
Would you take the whole family, or just you
if
would
we
go?
could, sure.
Yeah. Dave.
Do you remember the magic fingers in the old motels? I wonder if they have that up there. I'd go up for that.
I don't think they have magic fingers beds that you put a quarter into in space, Dave, but thanks for bringing that up. Well, that's all the time we have, except for this. Oscar-winning actress Gwyneth Paltrow says that she and her husband do something really unique. They live in the same house 3 days a week, then they live apart for 4 days each week. What's so unique about that, said Melania. That's I don't know what that means. All right, for all of us here on Triad Today, I'm Jim Longworth. We'll see you next week.